You passed the interview at the restaurant.
Yes.
You were, at the time, you were working for the country's biggest bookmaker, but you decided to jump ship to work for this upstart that finished off 5 bottles of wine and has been having you over. Given that you were married at the time,
Yeah.
you know, had responsibilities. How big a leap of faith was it to do that?
To be honest with you, it really wasn't. You know, I think I knew that how stale I'd been for a while, and it was really welcome, to be honest. It was a breath of fresh air, and to see someone who was a disruptor in the market like that was really exciting. And you know, given that he overpaid to get people out, it was better for me, obviously, in that sense. And he incentivised, which he's kept to that all of his career. He's always like tried to reward people accordingly. So the package was fantastic, you know. And I don't think it was a particular leap of faith at all. Obviously, you discuss this with your partner or your wife at the time, and it was completely clear it was the right thing to do.
So what was your first role?
Well, I was a shop manager. So we had a shop estate that we were trying to build up, which we did so completely unsuccessfully. I was just basically employed to do the similar sorts of things that I was before, but trying to scale so that at some point we'd have a big enough retail estate to sell to one of the majors. But that horse had bolted by the time that we got started, really.
Right, so none of it really went to plan. So did you think you made a massive rick?
No, because I was too... It was always busy, even though even though you could sort of see it wasn't quite going to plan, and we were, you know, some of the shops were getting break even, some of the shops were struggling, etc. We were always on our toes with the next move. You know, he was an on-course layer at the same time, and we had our ideas about telly betting, and there was always something going on, you know, relentlessly. So never was there a dull moment. So you didn't really have time to think about, you know, is this really going to work? Do I need to move on? Do I think that grass is greener somewhere else? I just didn't have the time to do that.
Now, you mentioned that Ben was also active on course. Did you get involved with that?
Well, in my first week, it was a phone call, and on that day he said, get your suit out, polish your shoes, do your top button up, get the tie done up tightly. You're coming up to Walthamstow to work on the bag. Of course, never worked on course before anywhere, you know, Fontwell in Tats or something like that, just to break me in, nothing. So I went up and drove at about 150 miles an hour all the way, so I was already nervous by the time I got there. And yeah, I was stuck on the bag, and in the bear pit that was the Walthamstow ring, where as a lot of people realise and have knowledge of the battles that went on, you know, Umbrella Gate, the Betfred issues, you know, the way he just took the place on from a young age, and I was stood there like a rabbit in headlights, and was rattling out the bets at 1,000 miles an hour when pre-ticket, you know, the pre-printed tickets and the machines and everything, and Clark was Rob Head, who pencil was on fire, you know, virtually had to change one after every race. And I realised, you know, what an operator he was, because you know, someone came up, I think they emptied their it was a girl, he emptied their purse out and had £18.75 at 7 to 4. And within 2 seconds he'd already calculated what the return was on that and shouted over the next bet. And you know, I somehow survived the bag, even though, you know, the likes of Jerry Croxford were sending the runners down furiously, and there were hedge bets being called over, and you had to, you know, make sure that you were on top of it. It was phenomenal. And then, you know, he'd say what we got the jolly for in the first, and before the traps had gone up, Rob had told him what it was for, even though, you know, it was a list as long as your arm. It's just an incredible operation. And that was sort of birth then, really, of myself, like, in the bookmaking sense of actually what the game was really about, even though I've been around for 15 years. So, yeah, it was very exciting.
So that on-course stuff was the constant between... So that was all going on while you had the betting shops that didn't work out, and then you moved on to the next part. Yeah. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. Out the back of one of the shops, I think it was the Patcham shop, we started laying some telebet business. and Ben had started networking, and that was really one of the big junctures in our lives when he decided that he wasn't just going to be a Brighton boy, he was going to be a London and Brighton boy, and got himself up to town and started putting himself about a bit, and we started to get some traction. And obviously at first you just attract everybody you don't want, but we sort of survived the first couple of tidal waves of business, and I don't know how, to be honest, but we did, and we started to grow that business from Patcham, and it was that was an exciting diversion. Yeah.
And you were working from a flat, just sort of sitting around a telephone? Well,
that came after that. That was the Goring shop, where we had part of the lease for the Goring shop, where we had the betting shop downstairs, we had the flat upstairs. So, being complete skinflints that we were, we put the office in the flat upstairs, and living room turned into the trading room, and 3 desks were wedged in there. I was on the little desk in the corner making the tea, and the other 2 guys were, trading the phones 7 days a week. So yeah, it was a pivot that was really telling at that point, and that's when Star really became something, in my view, in those early days at Goring.
Now, you said that Ben was going uptown to pick up new clients. You assume the sort of punters he was trying to court weren't very good punters.
Yeah.
No disrespect to any of them that might be watching it, but I mean, how did you manage to lure them away from the bookmakers they're already using? Because bookmakers that have punters like that normally treat them very well, and they don't want to lose them. So how did you manage that?
Well, it was a mixture of business, to be honest with you. It wasn't all straight business. We did attract, I think there's sort of like, bees around the honey when it comes to a new kid on the block, and all the faces turn up. And there was some lively stuff in there, but there was some recreational as well. And I think what that ethos of good service and lay a bet, and bet to size and you're on, and we'll pay you. And we'll pay you straight away. That was from day one, virtually, and I think that ethos has gone through the decades that have followed, that you can actually operate like that and attract attention. These are days of credit bookmaking when the big firms took credit bets, but I just think that we offered a service that they probably hadn't seen, that was quite as sharp as the one that we offered.
Now, it's obviously you guys are going to pay, but I used to have a credit counter myself, and it's very easy to ring up and have well, for me it wouldn't have been a sort of bet, but a £500 double on 2 odds on shots. Easy to call it on the phone, but pulling it up if it gets beat.
Yeah.
And if you've got somebody that's not quite so honest as you guys were, I mean, how often did you get knocked, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, credit bookmaking, Thames Lions. It's not for the faint of heart. The old adage, you've got to win it twice. And it was, we had some real moments, but it was a USP. We had to do it. We had to differentiate. And that's what we've always had to do. We've had to do something that the firms don't do in order to try and attract attention, and we did it well. But you had to be brave, and you had to suck it up. And there can be instances where people have won significant sums of money off you, got paid, and then, they haven't got the money anymore when you've won it back in a straight line, and then perhaps you bump into that person in their Bentley running around central London, at the 5-star hotel. So, it's something that you have to be brave with.
Yeah, and obviously what you were doing worked, because by the end of that decade, you'd gone from working in a flat residential place to opening offices in Hove. Hove, you opened the first ones. What do you attribute, apart from what you've already said, what do you attribute to Star's rise in that time? Yeah,
I think that, the networking, aforementioned networking was, significant. And then we tried to market ourselves. We tried to. I think we did Racing Post ads that I used to knock up on a Word document. And in those days, hopefully, if you open 30 or 40 accounts and they weren't all live, then that was fantastic. And that just started to grow. And then obviously in due course, we attracted the attention of. We signed up Bill Esdale and Square in the Air, which was a real moment for us, and he took us forward from a marketing PR level, alongside Luke, and that was when we started to try and market ourselves in the correct fashion as the bookmaker of the gentleman's bookmaker as we were those days, and somebody who's in significant standing if you want to have a bet and be looked after in VIP status, which was our niche back then.
Now, something else that was your niche that the other main bookmakers didn't do, at least we don't think they did. You took live information, you bet from lively people, and used that to your own advantage. So how important was that live information to the success of Star, probably back in the early days?
Yeah, I mean, it was a necessity, because you have to take stuff off the table that's in front of you, and I mean, we bet to a margin that is a joke now. It's like 3 or 4%. I think we used to win on a year off a monster turnover. But it was a necessity. We had to bring it on, because you can't compete in other levels, and then you can utilise that information, and as long as you're sharp, smart around it, you can actually make it pay. And but it means that the swings are gigantic, and you have to be able to hold on to those swings and ride them out.
And did the other bookmakers realise that you were sort of turning on them a bit?
In what sense? What do you mean?
Well, I assume that if you were using that information, you were backing the. Yeah.
I mean, it was noted in places, most definitely. Yeah.
And how involved were you in that sort of?
Yeah. It's always been something that I've enjoyed and looked at.
And you've seen in the video that Ben made to promote this interview, and we touched on it to begin with. You've made a personal fortune. Have you done that by punting?
No, not a fortune by punting. I've always enjoyed poacher and gamekeeper equally, and but really, what Ben's taught me over the years is compound your position, and effectively over the course of the next 15 years, that's what I've done personally, in the form of equity and investment. So it's been a case of play the long game, and he's taught me that.